All right. Good evening. Thank you. Hope everyone's doing good. Um, we're going to be finishing out lesson 6. So just quickly, just to review some of the things we highlighted on Sunday. We discussed cultural and modern time challenges. Um, we talked a lot about patience and priorities, the things that we face today that may bring additional challenges as we raise our children, or even challenges for us, just in our marriages alone. We discussed about what's happened with patience. We discussed some things, highlights about where patience is really good. It's for the Spirit. It produces character. It's patient, and how God is patient with us. With priorities, we discussed this, but seek first His kingdom and His righteousness. We're going to be discussing this again tonight and some additional points that I thought I'd just kind of bring out. Not everything, actually, if anything, is really directly from the book tonight. It's just a closure of some thoughts that we talked about, some emphasis. Talked about how important our relationships are. First and foremost, our relationship with God. And then, of course, loving our neighbors as ourselves, leading our families, how these things are the most important thing. Obviously, God is the most important, but these are things, the important things we should be putting up with above these other priorities that we have in life. We began ending talking about kind of what your last moments would look like. That hypothetical question, what would you do if you knew you were, living for another hour, or another week, or whatever? And how many of us would probably reach out to our families and our loved ones? We wouldn't be concerned with the material things or what we didn't get done in this life. And then, of course, talking about that with time and how we read the verse constantly. Life is but a vapor. And I think with kids, I don't know. It's an odd thing with children. In the early stages, there's moments when it feels just very slow, and then there's moments when you're like, "What happened to time?" And I know one for me, most recently, was hearing Galley's second birthday party coming up. And I literally looked at Daphne and said, "We were just at her first birthday party like yesterday," and it just felt like yesterday. I don't know if that's just something that comes with age. You talk to older people, and they're like, "It just seems like yesterday," and it was 20 years ago. So maybe that's just one of those getting older things. But you know, we had a picture book on the bed, and I was flipping through it, and it was Hunter and Kylie when they were still this tall, and I was like, man, it happens. So time is so valuable. How we spend that time, how we influence them during that time. So, what are we doing with the time we have? Again, these are just some considerations with some verses to chew on. A lot of these verses we've seen, some we haven't seen. So, as we think about impacting our kids for life, we've talked about this, but I just want to highlight it in its own kind of form, that our example speaks louder than our words. Your kids are going to pick up on, and they're going to really pay attention to the things you do. And if you don't think that's true, watch how any son walks behind his father, or any daughter walks behind her mother. They'll have the same kind of walk a lot of times, the same kind of arm flare or head tuck or whatever it is. It's like mini-me following you around. They're paying attention to you, how you walk, what you do, picking up your mannerisms. Your example does speak louder than your words. I would also say with that as they get older and they start getting a little more logical about how to handle some conversations and discussions and things you're calling them out on, I'll call you back out. Because, well, you just did that yesterday, or you just did that last week. Not like you're setting the best example. So we have to be thinking about our example. Obviously, we've discussed Deuteronomy 6 to death, and it's great to lean on and rely on. Also, just want to bring up 1 Corinthians 11:1, and that concept of follow me as I follow Christ. Think about that. In your walk as a parent, and some of this stuff is so fresh on my mind because we just had a conversation with Hunter about some of these things. You know, if there's anything good, this is a Brian McDonald statement. I love it. Sometimes Brian just got these, you want to put them on a wall. And I'm going to butcher it, but it's something along the lines of anything good that comes out of me comes from God or comes through God. And it just really speaks to what we're living, how we're living, and the goodness that is through us because He is in us and working through us. Do we want that to be the example to our children? Absolutely. If we are living a life following Christ, they will mimic that. They will see that. They will follow that example. When you start seeing your little daughter or son try to song leader, good. They're seeing good things. They're being part of good things. When they start just, and it's Jesus love me, good. They're singing along. They may not be on tune. They may not know the words, but they're mimicking, right? They're learning. Those are beautiful things. Philippians 4:9, put into practice what you've learned. You know, we want to think and hope as parents that all the things that we teach them come to fruition, but we also need to show them so that they can see what good comes from it. A recent conversation we had was how we can serve others, even in younger groups, and how much that means to the younger groups for an older teenage boy to come in and be a part of what they're doing or help them in their baseball games or whatever it may be. So if you're doing those things, maybe it sets the example for them to volunteer, hold the door for people, help carry their groceries in. Simple little things that are acts of service and good, godly deeds. Patience is caught, not just taught. So our patience, how we work in trials through slow processes, how we work with people, is a spiritual inheritance that you pass on. This is, I know for me, this one's been a long run game, and I think it continues to be. Patience is tough. Your kids will pick up on your impatience, and they will have their own impatience moments. So we do need to be praying about it, thinking about it, discussing it. James 1:3-4, referring to how patience builds maturity and completeness. Ecclesiastes 7:8, the patient in spirit is better than the proud in the spirit. And in Galatians 5, we've already discussed how it's a fruit of the Spirit. Brad brought this up after class on Sunday. Great point. We talk about wanting to grow these fruits of the Spirit. If you want to grow a fruit or a vegetable, what does that process look like? If I want to grow an apple tree, what does that look like?
Anybody? Good. Multiple steps. And one, you gotta have the right seeds before they can go work the ground. The ground's gotta be prepped.
Yep. Prep the ground, plant the seed. Are we done?
Gotta wait.
Gotta wait. What do you mean? I planted the seed. I want my fruit.
You gotta have to wait. I think this goes back to what you talked about last maybe one before. I mean, it's an instant society. We want everything right now. And man, that's tough. I mean, if you gotta wait, how long does it take to grow a tree? I mean, you're gonna wait. We grew some trees several years back, and it took probably 3 years before we actually had good fruit off the tree. And this was a different type of tree, but anyway, it took at least 3 years for it to come in and start producing again.
I think you have to, you have to be intentional. If you want an apple tree, you got to plant apple seeds.
Yep.
You can't just throw whatever out there and expect that it's going to be an apple tree.
Yep. So, exactly. Yeah.
And then along with that,
if y'all say the same thing at the same time, I quit.
You got to protect it. It's not just waiting. You got to protect it from
from disease, from pests, weather, drought, storms, parent.
If it has a weakness and starts to lean, we might have to tie it to something to prop it up, right?
They give it what it needs.
Give it what it needs. Yeah, right. Got to give it what it needs. So, and the point being is, there's some parallels here. Obviously, we're planting seeds at a young age, and we're hoping those seeds take root, and that they grow, and what we're hoping they will grow into, right? Because we're going to work with it and take care of it, and protect it, and provide for it until we start to see those fruits produce. If it starts to err, we correct, right? So, I say that, and there's going to be times in life, some of you parents have experienced this, some of you have not yet. The older your kids get, they're going to understand things a little bit faster, but that doesn't mean that they're going to put them into practice faster. We still have to work with them to get these things moving and going and help them grow in the right way. It's a very patient game. We'll try.
I don't know if you ever used the phrase, I think we talked about this last week, you should know better.
Oh, yeah.
You ever use it with your kids? But should they? I don't know that we covered don't eat dog food until somebody ate dog food.
Right? Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't lick a factory until somebody licked a factory. You should know if I have to change your oil, if I covered that. You know what I mean? I think about the Ethiopian eunuch when he's reading the scripture. You know who you're reading about. How am I gonna know?
Yep.
Unless somebody tells me.
Exactly.
So sometimes I forget that. Oh, you should just learn this stuff by osmosis.
Yeah, right.
My mom used to just get mad and say, "You know better than I." Be like, what day was that lesson?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like I don't remember that particular lecture. You know.
Exactly.
That's all we joke and complain and jokingly complain about how expensive kids are, eating inside of house and home, and money for this, money for that. Think about all those physical things, and that's the cheapest part. Is the time that it requires. That is really the more expensive part, and that's the part that we too often try to neglect or try to replace with money or with stuff or
Distractions.
whatever distraction. And all kids want their time.
Yeah. Kids, I think, will try you on this word probably more than most anything we talk about. They will try your patience. And they start at a very young age. They start as soon as they're born. And I think it can be, there's moments of discouragement or confusion or frustration, especially as a young parent, when your kid's screaming nonstop and you've tried everything you know to do, you're wore out, you're in tears, but you know you can't give up. You're done. You're tapped out, but you can't give up. You got to keep going. I don't know that stops. And I don't say that to discourage. I say that because it's a long game. And there's going to be moments when we really have to go further than what we thought we could go in child rearing. But the earlier we put these things into practice and work with them, all that hard work up front does create easier work on the tail end. And we will see the fruits of those labors. Teach kingdom priorities through daily choices. So do kids see in your choices what it means to seek first the kingdom of God? Do they see that in your example? Do they hear that in your words? Is this what they are gathering? Of course, Matthew 6:3 tells us to seek first his kingdom. Colossians 3:1-2, set your mind on things above. Joshua 24:15, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We're gonna get to something here in just a minute that has been really, really heavy on my mind. Is actually ever since Jim from Georgetown came down and held that meeting. He talked about show your children your limp or something like that. It was a phrase, something like that. Show them your limp or let them see your limp. Because we all have weaknesses, right? And I think it can be easy for us in some capacities when we have high expectations of ourselves to have those high expectations of our kids as well, to hold them to a higher standard than what they may be capable of achieving at that time. We may need to show them that we struggle too, but there's success on the other side of these struggles. We can make it through these struggles. So in our hard choices, when we're down and we're struggling, if we have a bad job situation, are we showing them that prayer is where we're going for support and comfort, that we're leaning on our spouse, that we're doing these godly things and not just spazzing out, freaking out, throwing stuff against the wall, or blaming everything else in the world? Can we show them through our choices when someone's hurt or someone needs help by going and helping them rather than just keep walking by? There's a lot of opportunities to show them in choice how we seek first godliness. Preach it, buddy. We already talked about relationships. Saw this phrase. It's a results-driven culture. Your kids should see that people matter more than performance. Of course, we have tons of scripture to back up this concept, but John 13, 24 through 25, thinking about love one another. This is the mark of true disciples. 1 Peter 4:8, love covers a multitude of sins. 1 Thessalonians 2, 7 through 8 is Paul's example of gentleness and sharing life and not just words. So our relationships, again, are so important. Our relationship with God, our relationship with our family, our spouse, and our children. And showing them that while there may be things in culture or society that are seen as more impressive or more important, how to compartmentalize that in a way. Because God is what's important. Society's not going to teach you that. College is not going to teach you that. The only place they're really going to learn that is in the home. And in Bible school occasionally, but in the home. Coming from the parents. Equip your children to stand against cultural currents. I don't know how many of you get into watching some of these like debates when the guy sets up a little stand at a college or something. I do like to watch those. And sometimes those guys, man, I want to just like record it and be able to play it back. They word it so well, or they have really good points that they bring up. Is that going to be your child one day? Will they be able to stand their ground and have a conversation if someone were to approach them about something they don't agree with? Are we equipping them and even teaching them that expect this? God tells us this is going to happen in life. We've experienced it. Everyone in this room has experienced this to some degree, where you've had to go against the current. Our children need to know that's coming, and they need to know they can handle it. They can succeed that. We need to teach discernment, how to question these norms in light of God's word. Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world. Guilty as charged. We read these verses and it's just, we've heard it so much through our life in church. We've seen it, sermon after sermon, but when we really, really think about, okay, is this what I'm doing with my kids? Am I making this important? Because it is. And that it's truth. That there is a pattern of this world and there's a pattern that's a godly pattern. And I want them to stick to the godly pattern. Psalm 119:9, how can a young person keep their way pure? By living according to God's word. Proverbs 4:23, guard your heart, for it determines the course of your life. So we need to equip our children to stand against these currents. And I'm going to bring one more kind of on top of that, and this one's probably even harder to digest, but there's truth in it, and you know there is. And that is, equip children to stand even when they are hurt by fellow believers. We have seen this in the church. We have seen situations where there's Christians who are in a confrontation. They're in a battle. Something's happened or something's going to happen that's not good. Unfortunately, we do need to teach our children to know that we're not perfect. And these things might come up between our brothers and our sisters that are unsettling. They might even divide up our friendship at times. We don't want that. It's not the goal, but it can happen. We can teach them how to manage that the best we can. But their faith, at the end of the day, their faith must be rooted in Christ, not people. Forgiveness and grace are not optional. They are spiritual armor. God can use painful moments for maturity and ministry. I hate to see these moments. And I think, in the past, I can remember maybe a couple instances where I couldn't be a part of another group of something because of what they were teaching or what they believed in was just so different from where I was at. And they weren't changing, I wasn't changing, so I didn't get to be involved with what they did. That hurts as a teenager when you see a lot of your friends kind of sitting over there. And it's like you're the one in the corner. And you start to feel like you're the odd man out. But it can happen. So, a few verses to keep in mind. Hebrews 12:2, looking to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Psalm 118:8, it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. Matthew 18:21-22, forgive not 7 times, but 70 times 7. Romans 12:18, if it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. 1 Peter 4:12-13, don't be surprised by trials, even from unexpected sources. We have to teach our children that these things will come. We're also there to help them manage those situations. Help them learn how to handle them because we have been through them ourselves or we have witnessed it happen ourselves. I'm sure many of you have witnessed things that ended roughly. You probably witnessed things that ended okay. How do we teach our children to get to that same point? Here's the one that has been weighing on me the most. What is your legacy? I think we talk about this question, we think about it, and a lot of times, especially from the worldly perspective, it's this grand scheme. It's this grand finale. What I am remembered for. My name will be carried on through the history books, and everybody's going to know about Luke Hale and what he did, right? No. And this is something I told one of our kids next door very recently. I said, I'm going to do a lot of things wrong. I won't get it right every time. Definitely won't get it right every time. I said, but if my one success in this life is leading you to a faithfulness, if my one success in life is that you believe in God walking out of this house and you remain faithful, I will have fulfilled my legacy, which points back to God. Doesn't matter whose name's on the tomb, doesn't matter if I'm burned or what, doesn't matter. What matters is that I instilled in them a faith for God, a love for God. That's the legacy I want to leave my children. Do I want a retirement fund to pay off their house? Sure, that's nice. I ain't going to get it. I'm going to spend it. But no, I'm joking. A couple classes ago, this was mentioned. We didn't get to talk about it, but Timothy's faith. In 2 Timothy 1:5, Timothy's faith was passed down from his grandmother and mother. Your legacy can go beyond your children. That's how. As a matter of fact, our spiritual legacy, Proverbs 13:22, and it does really kind of speak in a varying terms of worldly wealth, but also spiritual talk in there as well. That inheritance to your children and your children's children can be your faith. Your grandfather, your grandmother was a very faithful Christian. That can carry. Wealth may not carry, but that's something that can carry forever. Psalm 78:4, tell the next generation about God's deeds and wonders. Guys, someday, Lord willing, our children will have their children. And they're going to call you, or not call you, and just drop them off one day. And you will have an opportunity to spoil them, sure. You also have an opportunity to teach them, be an example to them, to share what has been a blessing in our lives. What we all know is what God has given us. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, because you can spoil them and teach them at the same time and then send them back, right? But I love the thought process that goes along with this legacy in mind, and then thinking about that being the inheritance. What is more beautiful? What is there more wealth held in anything than that? I just can't think of it if there is. That's the most we can pass down, is that faithfulness, that belief and trust in God. So that's been a heavy one. And then I want to bring this thought to you. We've been blessed and entrusted by God with this sacred task of raising children, not for the world that is passing away, but for the kingdom that will never end. I wrote some of this. I can't take credit for all of it. I wish I could, but I sat there and I worked on this for way too long to get this one PowerPoint. But I wanted to word it in the right way, and I hope that y'all get the sentiment from it. But obviously, we want our children to impact the world, for sure. We want them to impact and help others come to God that are lost. Be a light, be an example. We want that. But not for the world to consume, not for them to take pleasures in the world that is passing away. We're raising them for that kingdom where we will be with them again. They're coming back home to somewhere we'll all be. And that's a beautiful thought. So all this in mind, I just think it maybe kind of wraps up and consolidates a lot of the points we've already talked about within impacting our kids' life. Our example and our patience and our love and our suffering, our teaching, our discipline, all the things that are really hard, really exhausting, really time-consuming, sometimes really frustrating. Is it worth it? If this is the end goal, and we get to be there forever together, every ounce that we put into that was worth it. Any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, I was wondering this myself, how, because most of the things as a parent, I know my parents like raised me. You need to go to church. You need to refrain from bad things. Try to do good things. But the majority of the things a parent, and from what I've witnessed and done and had, grew up in, the majority of the things that you're getting instructed and ordered around about are physical things. Don't make a mess in the house, clean up your mess, be, respectful at school, don't talk back, help out and do your chores around here. That's most of the stuff, right? If you get your kid to be neat and help out at the home and not mess anything up, it's like winning a lot of battles, right? But that's all quote unquote physical stuff. Does that cross over to the kingdom?
Is there authority in anything you just said?
Absolutely. I would think so. Absolutely.
respect authority, Romans 13, that's the school stuff. Ephesians 6, children by your parents. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking when you mentioned that. When they're little, if you do I say it because I said it, because there might maybe that's what I meant, but as they grow, you got God. You got God.
What about like,
Bible principles.
well, like physical things like making them get a job or making them clean up the room or do chores? I don't get me wrong, I believe that there is value in that. But it's hard for me to just go up to someone and say, let me show you why a Christian should require it of their children. Because, like, will children obey your parents? Like, well, if I don't tell them to, they don't have to. But I feel like, even as a Christian, I would be failing them to not teach them those things. So is there a crossover?
Yeah, I believe there is. And so, two different things. So you mentioned work, right? Man, don't work, neither shall he eat. Are there principles in teaching or showing or telling our children, you need to work? You need to have a work ethic. Yes, it's biblical. Work ethic is biblical. So everything we're doing in that regard is pointing to biblical principles. It can all point back. And then as we tell them to, okay, we need to make our bed or we need to brush our teeth or you're being an authoritative figure, they are learning to respect your authority. You are helping them to appreciate healthy and clean nature, which we're to present our bodies as living sacrifices to God, right? Should we take care of our bodies? Absolutely. Does it point back to things in the Bible? Yeah, we got to take care of our bodies. So everything in authority that we send or give our children in a, yes, I guess you're phrasing it in kind of a worldly way, but those still point back to godly things in my mind, biblical principles. Anybody else agree or disagree?
I think he's, sorry.
I was just gonna say, even if it looks physical, you're teaching them internal like discipline, and that'll apply direct. You know, if they become Christians and work in the church later as teenagers or adults, like they've already had that discipline instilled in them. Like,
Yep.
I need to have good work ethic, I need to take care of things, be respectful of others. Like, it's physical when you're doing it at home, but it can become spiritual later when they are making decisions on their own.
Absolutely.
They've already got that work ethic, and they're gonna work.
Yep. And you mentioned something about respecting authority. I mean, we need to respect our elders, right? Whether you're, whatever role you play in the flock, we respect our elders. They're going to learn that respect in the home under your authority as well.
I think, especially for the work part of it, they can go hand in hand. You know, I can't lean on my shovel. What's it say? You can't lean on a shovel and pray to God for a hole. You know, there's things that we have to do. You know, like the tough prayer is patience. You know, God's not going to just sprinkle it down and let you have it. You're going to have to work to obtain it. Whenever I was growing up, if I wanted to drive, I wanted to do whatever, better get a job because we can't afford to buy your car and pay your insurance and things like that. So I do think that there's definite kind of tying it all together. Like, you know, just because say you obey and you're baptized, that's not it. That's when the work really starts to begin.
Yep. That's good. Anybody else on that? Did that suffice? I mean,
Yeah,
Oh.
no, it was good. I felt like that was the answer, but it was hard for me to, and I guess I observed different things from people with different like, I grew up like Nick, like, if you wanted something, you better get, my mom would be like, even if I had money saved up, she'd be like, you quit your last job, right? Get a new one. And if I came home without one, she'd be like, why didn't you come home with a, you know, and a lot of folks, their parents tell them, going to school is your job. So I guess you could stylistically change things, but you still do have to make them. I feel like it's a good Christian thing to make them obey in the physical aspects of life. I do feel like you would be a poor representative of Christ if your life was, you know, just a wreck. You were a really bad employee, your house was a wreck, you didn't take care of the things that God did bless you with.
well, especially if you're telling them to go do stuff, then you're just being hypocritical.
Right, well, I guess I meant if you allowed them to grow up and be like that.
Oh, yeah,
you
right.
would have done them a disservice.
Yes, yes, and I have firsthand witnessed that disservice in a Christian home where they didn't push their children to success, and those children are still at home at 45, 50 years old, never moved out. So there's some,
It's kind of a silly example, but I think about when I was playing sports growing up, which is like a very worldly thing. My parents were like so serious about it, and at the time I was like, "Why are you like telling me to like, be on time for basketball practice, but also like teaching me about God and like how that's not important at all? Like how can this be true?" But I think about like how much I've taken as an adult from like sports about like accountability and like being an example and like teamwork, and there's like so much power in finding value in like worldly things that you can take into adulthood, like me.
yeah, that's really good. Yeah. I mean, all these things are societal things. Getting a job is societal. Yes, it's part of our duty, right? We got to contribute to society. Are there dual benefits to it? Yeah, absolutely. And just as much as I agree with Audrey that there is a lot we can learn from these extracurricular activities, athletic events, whether it is that or whatever, building those skills that who knows that she might have been an influence to her peers, to her teammates, and godliness. Yes.
Like she said, I think part of, just being a Christian is, partly Matthew 28, Great Commission, and being a witness and those things she describes, and just having discipline and being a wise person or a approachable person is maybe biblical in a way, a witness to the community and others. So that's kind of all.
It's a really, really good question and really good thoughts. Um, it's funny that I think sometimes it's easy to sometimes it can be easy to worry if we're putting the focus on the wrong thing. Thinking about talking about sports. Uh, One of the things my parents hated was when I got interested in sports. And it was really more so because I had interest in basketball and had interest in football, and some things they were concerned about because they knew games would overlap a service night, and that was a no-go. And other things it was because of the attire associated with it, and they didn't want to be immodest, or didn't want their little Luke to get hurt. That kind of stuff goes along with it too. But there are some things we can do even in those moments where I've seen plenty of families do it, successful athletic children, still manage to be part of those programs, but still be really strong Christians and really strong examples. And I've even seen that influence some of their friends to come to, say, a kids study or a VBS study or something like that. So I think there's a lot of good that can be there. If we manage that right and talk to our children about what's important, we can still have the conversation that God is first. But we can also work hard and do hard in these other things to get good life skills that help us both professionally and spiritually.
As we teach. I was thinking about those Ecclesiastes verses that says, Solomon says that there's nothing better than for a man to eat and drink and enjoy his toil, for this is the gift of God. And I just think like, well, if it's a gift of God, wouldn't I be misguided or in error to do it poorly? If I have an opportunity to do something that God gifted me, wouldn't it be wrong to do it poorly? Wouldn't it be wrong to squander that gift, even if it's not, between Sunday morning and Sunday evening services and Wednesday night services? If it's outside of that, it's still a gift.
Listen, y'all want to eat, just call me. We'll go eat. Great comments. Well, I wanted to consider one or two of the questions, but there was a reading. Yeah, on page 33. I was going back and reading over this, and I thought it's good to consider. Bottom of page 33. If Jesus didn't do it all, what makes you think you can? When you look into the life of Jesus, you notice that he didn't live on overload. He went to sleep each night without having healed everyone, taught everyone, or met every need. It didn't mean he was lazy or didn't care, but that he recognized the limitations of human flesh. He understood that you cannot do everything and that you must choose your priorities. What did he say to a woman who misplaced hers? Martha, Martha, you are worried and bothered about so many things, but only a few things are necessary. I wonder how Jesus would advise hurried families living in the microwave world of our times. Brad and I have had this conversation umpteen million times. What would Jesus say if he was here right now? Would we just be slapped in the face like, you're pathetic? Get up, get over this, stop doing this. Where's your focus? What's important to you? And I'm definitely guilty as charged that there's moments in life when those priorities are not where they need to be. But in this moment, and we've studied this story recently in sermons, and I think even through one of the meeting holders may have mentioned it. Does that shock you all that the homemaker or the provider at that house was just trying to do this good service, and that they were told, in a way, that you chose the worst portion?
If you think about that, what we were just talking about, is a clean house indicative of my gratitude? You know what I mean? I think
If it is,
if it is.
we got problems.
If it is, you know what I mean? Just, I think if you just threw that out there to some rando, that might close the door.
Yep.
I mean, I think that could be a dangerous thing. Not to say there's value in being grateful and being a good steward or what you got, but what was Jesus chastising? Just thought that popped in my head.
I always kind of thought he was getting on to her though because of the specialness of the mom. I'm the Son of God and I'm here today. This is not going to happen very often. Out of all the days in the world, there's only a few that's going to happen. I think the chastisement would have been in reverse if it was commonplace for one sister to do all the work in the house and the other to not. That's kind of how I read that.
Right, because the need was service.
Right.
She was busy trying to serve and take care of
It was just,
but
the Son of God was there. Put that to the side.
I see, in my mind, because he's there, I want everything to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think.
She'd be having me taste this chili real quick.
Right. I don't necessarily think Martha, just like an irredeemable sin.
Yeah, Blake, no, right. Agreed.
Misguided, like, look, you don't need to be so worried about it. It's a short time.
Yeah.
It would be better us just talk. But I think her heart was in the right place because she could make that argument. Well, the Son of God's here. The chili better be on point,
Yeah.
in those busy moments we all have with our kids, where's the time spent, the value, you know what I mean? I gotta clean this thing up before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Or but again, we all are guilty of doing this the whole time with our kids.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
where's the value, what time spent, where's the value go to? What's more value? That makes sense.
So I'll say this, and then we'll probably have to end. So, Lord willing, many of you are already doing this, and some of you will be leading up to this in your life. But at some point, you're going to gather around at night to say a nighttime prayer, and you're going to notice one or the other of your kids are distracted by something. And it is, if you don't break them of that habit real quick, it gets harder to break them of that habit. What's the more important thing going on during prayer time? Who we're talking to, right? And they need to understand the gravity of that. We can teach that at a young age. Hey, when we're praying hands, not playing hands. That's what I always tell Thatcher. Praying hands, not playing hands. Sometimes I have to tell Hunter that too. Because they get distracted because they're so used to being distracted by everything going on. When it's time to talk to God, it's time to talk to God. Choose a better portion, right? Good thoughts. Thank you, guys.